Good morning. I like how this is a very energetic group this morning, but you all quieted down. You had the sense we were about to start. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm Raj Kumar. I'm the president and editor-in-chief at Devex, and I've been coming to Davos for many, many years, and it's been fantastic to see the evolution of this space we're in. This was the World Food Program tent for many years, then it became the SDG tent. This is our first year as Devex as a media partner for this tent. And I think its growth has also been emblematic of the growth of the issues that we all work on and care about in this annual meeting. The humanitarian issues, the development issues, the health issues have just grown and grown year after year. And in many ways now are the center of the discussion that we have here in Davos every year. And to me, one of the quintessential sessions, one of the best Davos sessions, is when there is something that is so obvious that we should all know it, and yet somehow we don't. And because we bring it here, we elevate it on the global scale. And people walk away and say, of course. And I think that's what we're going to do this morning in this breakfast. Because we're talking about an issue that should be so universal, that all of us should know in our day-to-day lives and do in a sense. And yet, I think as you will learn from the many experts and leaders that we've gathered this morning, this is something that still has a very, very long way to go. And of course, we're talking about what's in the name of our organization hosting today, ATscale, assistive technologies. And we're talking about the fact that a third of the people on this planet use some kind of assistive technologies, many of us glasses, but many other kinds. And yet, if you look across the planet and you look at low and middle income countries, the gap is dramatic. And okay, maybe this is obvious. We've seen this. There are many of us here from low and middle income countries or who travel often around the world and see the obvious disparities. And yet, global focus on this issue has not really existed. And we're going to change that this morning. So it is fantastic for all of you to have made it here and to be part of this session. And I want to invite up to our little virtual stage here our first panelists for a conversation. I'd like to welcome Pascal and Leo to join me, please. Pascal Bielefeld is the CEO of ATscale, which is, of course, the global partnership for assistive technology. And Leopoldine Despont? Huyghe Despont. Okay. I knew I was going to get it wrong. I didn't know I was going to get that wrong. But Leo, fortunately, goes by Leo. I'm just thrilled to have the two of them here to kick us off this morning, and I'm going to come and join you there, if I may. Pascal, let me begin with you, if I can, because you lead this organization, and I understand that this is an important morning, not only because we're having this discussion, but because it is the first launch of a campaign you're wearing there on your chest. We'll get to that in a second, but give us the broad picture. Why is it that this issue that seems so straightforward and so obvious and with such a potential high return on investment that we can experience in our day-to-day lives, why is it that it remains rather quiet and rather maybe underrepresented? And what are you trying to do about it?
Thank you, Raj. Good morning, everyone. It's great to see you. Thanks for making it out so early and despite the freezing weather. Let me just start, maybe, Raj, by pointing out a couple of additional things why this is so important. I think today, as Davos meets, world leaders meet here, I think we've never been as divided and fractured as a world, and seeing exclusionary tendencies everywhere. And what we're trying to do really is all about inclusion, and that's really at the heart of assistive technology, and that's at the heart of the SDGs. Leaving no one behind. And how can we ever reach that if we don't have true inclusion? And how can we have inclusion if we don't have the most basic forms of assistive technology available? So it's really fundamental to all that we do, which is even the more astounding why we don't do more about it. The second thing that is really striking is that it's not just life-changing. We know assistive technology can change lives, right? It can mean a life of opportunity or a life of dependency, for example. But it's also life-saving, right? And as we look around the world today with Ukraine, with Gaza, with so many other places, Sudan, Myanmar, where there is conflict, or other places where there are disasters. Iceland just now is in full volcanic eruption, and the Pacific Islands. it can be life-changing, life-saving if you don't have assistive technology, if you can move out of your house or not in time, if you can hear the sirens, if you can hear the warnings or not, right? So it's really that essential. And then the third thing that is so important to remind ourselves is that it is about everyone. Sometimes we tend to think, oh, this is an issue with people living with disabilities, and it's a small group of people in the world, and it's, right, we'll deal with that. But it really is about everyone. You've all heard about the silver tsunami, maybe, about this aging wave, and that is going to be driving a massive growth in the need for assistive technology. If we all live long enough, we'll all need some form of AT or another. We may need a wheelchair when we're older, or walkers or hearing aids, and so on and so forth. So it really is about everyone.
I think the statistic is right now it's 2.5 billion people that rely on AT, and by 2050 they're thinking 3.5 billion.
That's right. Yeah. And so why don't we do more about this? I think there are many reasons, and I'm sure you have some thoughts about that too. But I think one is it's often not visible. There is a real lack of diversity in all of the areas that we work in, and so so you don't often just think about it. I spent 20 years working in development and global health, and never did the issue of people living with disabilities or how to ensure access to health services for those who may not be able to see or hear or walk never comes up, never, right? It's just not in people's mind unless you've lived it, or you know somebody who's lived it, or it's been somehow brought to your attention. And then there's the issue of complexity. I think there's a perceived complexity. Oh, this is something we can't deal with. This is too complicated. Let's just focus on everyone else first, right? And then we'll come to it later. And so it always ends up being at the bottom of the list.
I want to get, Leo, your take on this issue of why that Pascal raises. Why is this an issue that has been in the background and not the forefront, given the scale, the opportunity in front of us? You're an activist, you're a filmmaker, you were the vice president of the World Disability Union. You know this space very well personally and through your work. Why is it that only here and now, with the launch of a campaign here in Davos, we are trying to elevate this issue?
It's been a 14-year struggle for me to, so once again, thank you so much, because once again, it's the first time we talk about assistive technology. It's my 3rd year in Davos. I've been working with the UN, it's the first time. And that's why I came all the way this morning from Zurich. But you have to understand that any difference means fear. And if we change fear from acceptance, and if the more we talk about disabilities through my films, through anything, 14 years ago when I made my first film, the industry was not ready at all. It went to Cannes, it went to Tribeca Film Festival, but the industry was shocked. And the audience, the response from the audience was so amazing. I received so many messages from people with disabilities who were like, hey, thank you for representing us. And then I realized, okay, wow, this is my life mission. So I have to do something. But once again, a wheelchair for anyone here standing, anyone here who doesn't have someone around them with some kind of difference, some kind of disability, you don't know about it. So the unknown means fear. And so basically, it is all about fear, and everything is about fear, right? So once we accept it, it's going to be normalized, but the normalization of people with disabilities is crucial. Once again, 1/3 of the people in the world has some sort of disability. Okay.
And just to give people a real world current example, you're doing a lot of work in Ukraine, where you're supporting a children's hospital.
Yeah.
And Pascal mentioned this SDG agenda. We're all familiar with the idea of leave no one behind. We say this a lot, but I think we fail to identify who are these people being left behind. And very often when you look, it's the most marginalized people, and it's, as you say, people who may have some difference, and yet they're ignored and forgotten, and then we wonder, why don't they access health services, for example?
also there's something is stigma and stereotypes. And in countries, in developing countries, especially in low-income countries, people, first of all, don't have the resources to take care of people with disabilities. So that's why it's crucial to help them and provide them with healthcare, with AT. It's our duty, high income countries, it's our duty to help them, to guide them, to educate them. Education is key, it's crucial. However, in Ukraine, for instance, it is one of the highest numbers of people with disabilities in the country, also because of Chernobyl, and people don't know this. And not only they don't have the resources, but they are ashamed of differences. So basically they hide people with disabilities. And so those people are not provided because they're hidden from society or abandoned. It is the highest number in Ukraine, unfortunately, of orphans with disabilities. It is terrible. I've seen, I went all over Ukraine during the war. I've seen it. Helped, we evacuated with Save Ukraine, Mykola Koulieba's foundation, tens of thousands of people with disabilities and orphans with disabilities that we placed all over the world, especially in Europe, for them not to, have a culture shock. But and I'm talking about Ukraine, but there's so many other countries that it's the same. I went to Haiti. Sorry, I have so many stories. But once I went to Haiti, many years ago, I was on the board of Artists for Peace and Justice, and we went to Jacmel in the south. And I went to this family because they asked for me. There were two little daughters, the daughter of the two little girls with my disability, osteogenesis imperfecta, which is brittle bones. So I used to break my bones all the time. It's okay, I'm fine. And they were on a board of wood. And their parents were so scared to move them that they never went out of the house. And they were very, very, very fragile because, once again, no access to healthcare, no access to AT means, it's a catastrophe. So they had all their bones disformed, everything. And once we provided them with wheelchairs, what did it do to the family? It eased the family because they were also a burden. Believe me, they loved their daughters. But they were a burden to the family. So what does it mean? Burden to the family means it's the family cannot work properly. Well, of course, them specifically, they didn't have proper access to accommodation and food and water. But wheelchairs, two little wheelchairs, changed their lives. The dad could take time for him to work. So it means inclusion in a society. And what does it mean, inclusion in society? Healthy life. And this is reaching the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And we don't realize how important it is to provide AT in order to live with dignity, but to have a healthy life.
Pascal, I think Leo's story gives a great example of the economic opportunity here in a way, right? The investment opportunity. And there, of course, everyone here is trying to make the case for their issue and why it has the biggest return on investment. This seems like it has an enormous one. The numbers I know that you're using are, for every dollar invested, you get $9 back, essentially, in economic productivity. And you can imagine it at the individual level, right? How transformative it can be. You're here launching this campaign. Tell us what the campaign actually aims to do. Is it just to raise awareness, or is there a model behind it that you intend to push forward into countries like the one we're about to hear from in a moment?
Indeed. It actually makes logical economic sense to invest in assistive technology, right? Because there is that return to society ninefold, and probably more. That's probably an underestimate. But with this campaign, indeed, we don't just want to raise awareness. We do want to do that. That's really important because there isn't enough of it. But it's also meant to be a call to action. And that action lies first and foremost, I think, with government, with public systems that need to step up and live up to their obligations. They've all signed the convention, for example, you know, on the rights of people living with for the rights of people with disabilities. Yet so few countries are actually implementing what they've said they would, right? And so it's really to push that up the agenda and get governments to live up to their obligations and their commitments. Now, let's not minimize that this is difficult, because even if you are aware, even if you recognize the issue, even if you want to do something about it, and you're a Minister of Finance or a Minister of Health or a Minister of Social Affairs, I mean, and even if you understand the return on investment, there is an upfront investment cost that is not insignificant, right? The lowest price quality wheelchair is around $250, for example. A hearing aid, thanks to amazing work by UNICEF, you know, we have gotten the prices down from over $1,000 to $100. But even that is still expensive. It's certainly unaffordable for most individuals, but even for governments to start budgeting for this, it is a significant amount, and they're constantly trying to, you know, balance budgets. Not to mention because of some of our friends here who are putting pressure on countries to balance their budget. So there is a real financing challenge. This is what one of the things at ATscale we're trying to do, is to really try to find ways to influence the market and to get prices to come down to some of these essential products, so that it becomes sustainable.
And when you talk about a 2.5 billion person need, that's a big market.
It's a huge market.
And a growing market. So you would think there are market-based solutions. We'll get into this in the panel a little bit, but before we go to our special guest in a moment, I just want to see if you have a final thought you want to leave us with, Leo.
I think you had a question. You had an interesting question, which was.
Oh, you want me to ask that
yeah,
question?
yeah,
Okay.
because the answer is interesting in front of you guys.
Okay.
It is.
Give me a second.
No?
Oh, your call to action.
No, this will come.
Okay. Help me. Among the many hats you wear at the Children's Hospital in
Can you
Kiev.
tell us more about access to this technology has allowed you to participate in
your
everyday life?
Everyday life, yeah, of course.
Do you really want me to state the obvious?
I didn't think we needed to get into that question, but okay.
No, because, I mean, without my wheelchair is my legs. My wheelchair is my independence. Caroline, we understand each other. I wouldn't have studied, I wouldn't have lived, I wouldn't be able to go around and spread the good word and travel and live my life. It is, in just one little story in Ukraine, we evacuated this family from the east, really hard. 19-year-old little boy, 21 kilos, was never diagnosed in his life, and had respiratory problems. And we brought him to next to Lviv, and we provided him. He was about to die, like honestly, about to die. And we provided him with everything to breathe, with a wheelchair, with a house for la babushka, the family, everyone. You know, we brought everyone. He's alive. But the doctors, when we brought him to the hospital, they were like, yeah, maybe he has 2 weeks. Please, take a minute to understand the importance of Pascal's campaign. And a few words. It's really hard for humans to work together, for nations to agree, but the future demands otherwise. We're the free people. We are the one who have access to private healthcare. My wheelchair, I'm once again very, very, very lucky. We're the privileged ones, and we're currently failing billions of people. And those billions of people should have equal rights to live their full potential. So we come from centuries of being warriors. Why don't we use that energy toward peacefully helping one another, towards educating people to shift from fear to acceptance, towards building a community of trust and providing the 2.5 billion people with assistive technology. So today I would love for everyone, please, to pledge to Pascal and I, in front of my eyes, please, to support ATscale. And I pledge, Pascal, to support you in any ways I can. Be your ambassador, whatever you want, but we need to do this. Together is better.
Thank you so much. And I would love if we could just stop here. But I would be remiss if I didn't say one other thing. Two things. One is yes, support ATscale, but this campaign is broader than ATscale. It is about AT in general. And so there are many different ways to make sure we can increase that access. And each and every one of you in this room and outside of this room have a role to play. But before I talked about governments and their responsibility, but we're here in Davos. And Davos is really, where the world's biggest and most influential private companies come together as well. And I think it's important to also say that it's not just government responsibility, it's all of our responsibilities. And large corporations, and our valuable 500 is here as well, who's really pushing on this, but really have a huge responsibility, not only towards their employees, but also towards the communities in which they work, and the products that they do, and all of that. So, it's about governments, it's about the private sector, it's about all of us as individual citizens, in our respective roles every day. It's all of us that need to do more to make sure this doesn't get forgotten.
And if I just may, once we bring AT, it means we normalize disabilities. It means we have a more inclusive society, which really lives to a better world, helping, working hand in hand all together, and have a healthy and peaceful world.
Please, a round of applause. We're going to continue. We're going to get into some of these topics even deeper in our panel. But I want to welcome to the stage, we're very honored to have the First Lady of Pakistan. We're here with us today, Samina Arif Alvi. Samina, please join us up here.
First, I want to tell you that I'm here to pledge. I'm here to pledge. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Is everyone can hear me? Mr. Pascal, ATscale, Mr. Raj Kumar, President Devex, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning and Assalamu alaikum. I stand before you today as a representative of the people of Pakistan, honored to address the event on assistive technology on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum. I would like to congratulate ATscale, the Global Partnership for Assistive Technology, and Devex for organizing this beautiful event on a matter of utmost importance. And it's very close to my heart and all participants sitting, I'm sure it's very close to everyone's heart. Sorry. Advancing the Sustainable Development Goals through the power of assistive technology. As you are aware, we live in a world where technology permits every aspect of our lives, opening door to endless possibilities. In our rapidly evolving environment, the importance of accessibility and inclusivity cannot be emphasized enough. Ladies and gentlemen, today I wish to highlight a critical tool for achieving the assistive development goal, assistive technology. It is a bridge that connects individual with disability, the aging population, and those suffering from non-communicable disease to a world of opportunities. Opportunities for education, employment, and above all, inclusion in society. It is a catalyst for realizing many of the SDGs, ensuring no one is left behind in our journey towards 2030. Yet, we have a long road ahead in our journey towards fully inclusive society. Advancing the SDGs through assistive technology demand a synergy of global efforts. It calls for innovation and collaboration among technology experts, policymakers, and advocates worldwide. It requires a commitment from both the public and private sectors to invest in technologies that uplift and empower, and it needs political will from highest level. I call upon the global leader here at the World Economic Forum to prioritize the integration of assistive technology in your national plans and SDG strategies. The 2022 WHO and UNICEF reports highlights a growing need for assistive technology, with 2.5 billion people requiring at least one assistive product, whereas access is only 3% in low-income countries. By recognizing this importance of assistive technology, the President of Pakistan, I acknowledge that it is key enabler for inclusivity in promoting independence, enhancing functionality, and the realization of human rights. We believe that investing in assistive technology is an investment of the well-being and empowerment of our citizens. I'm pleased to share that our country demonstrates an unwavering and high-level political commitment towards advancing the agenda of enhancing access to assistive technology. This dedication is reflected in our proactive strategies and policies, ensuring that benefits of assistive technology reach every corner of our society. Today, it is with the immense pride and I represent Pakistan, a nation at the forefront of advocating for assistive technology, both within our region and on the global stage. Our commitment to this cause has been unwavering and multifaceted in a collaborative effort with other member states. Pakistan played a pivotal role in proposing regional and global resolution on assistive technology, which were adopted in 2016 and 2018. Our proactive role in global health diplomacy was highlighted through hosting 3 key side events at the World Health Assembly, along with a significant event at the 56th session of the Commission on Population and Development in New York in April 2023. A notable milestone was Pakistan's health minister launching the WHO assistive product list during a side event in Geneva on May 2017. Pakistan hosted the Eastern Mediterranean meeting, leading to the adoption of the Islamabad Declaration and the development of a regional strategy framework for assistive technology. Additionally, the President of Pakistan launched the first Rapid Assistive Technology Assessment Report and chaired the inaugural meeting of the National Steering Committee on Assistive Technology. My husband also addressed the global community in the virtual event mobilizing for assistive technology towards the 2nd Global Summit, organized by ATscale. As a fervent advocate and champion for assistive technology, I am proud to have personally initiated the launch of National Priority Assistive Product List, a pivotal step towards ensuring that essential assistive technology are accessible to those who need them most in our country. In 2019, upholding Pakistan leadership momentum in the global arena, I had the honor of inaugurating and concluding the Global Conference on Assistive Technology at the WHO headquarters in Geneva. The leadership and highest political commitment not only benefits its citizens, but also sets an exemplary standard for other nations in the global community. It underscores the powerful impact that visionary leadership can have in creating a more inclusive and equitable world for all. Pakistan deeply acknowledges and greatly appreciates the WHO's strong and invaluable support, which has been a cornerstone in our journey towards achieving these major milestones. The WHO's guidance and assistance have been fundamental in propelling our efforts forward, enabling us to reach new heights in our commitment to health and well-being for all. Ladies and gentlemen, our efforts should not be limited to our national borders. Healthcare has no boundaries, and the challenges faced by individuals with disabilities are universal. Let us reach out to our global counterparts and form a partnership that transcends geographical boundaries. By sharing best practices, knowledge, and resources, we can accelerate progress and create a collective impact on a global scale. Assistive technology also plays a key role on universal health, a coverage of ensuring and health and rehabilitation services are accessible to everyone. Let us prioritize research and development to ensure the continuous innovation and improvement of assistive technology. We must also acknowledge that there are still considerable gaps and barriers that need to be addressed. Affordability, availability, and accessibility remains key challenges, particularly for individuals in low-income and marginalized communities. We must strive to overcome these hurdles and ensure that assistive technologies reaches who need it the most, leaving no one behind. On this, I just wanted to say a few words about, she's saying about the Ukraine. And you know, Pakistan is making a best quality bionic hands and cheaper from all over the world. So you should take care about that. We have a very nice people making a bionic hands. I also want to express my admiration to ATscale and Devex for organizing this beautiful, remarkable side event and for launching this ambitious goal campaign. That's really wonderful. Unlock the Everyday, which aims to raise much needed awareness for everyone's right to assistive technology, no matter where they live or their income. I stand with the campaign which calls for global action to address the inequity. I was in Kashmir, and I saw one boy with the artificial hands, and he can't afford that bionic hand because it's very costly. So with the fundraise, we have given him the bionic hand, and you can't imagine how happy he was. There's one more thing I want to share with you. In our country, it's very difficult for people to afford all these things. So for a women empowerment, we have trained few girls so they can earn money with artificial, not with artificial, with computers, with software, so they can reach and they can earn and they can read with the IT. And you can't believe there's a hearing impaired girl, and she don't know how to thank me and we distributed around 20 computers to them. And she was just crying. She has no words to say. And it's so sad to see just for a laptop, they were so happy. It's really sad. I also want to express my admiration. Oh, sorry. What I was talking, I forgot. Unlock the Everyday, which aims to raise much needed awareness of everyone's rise to assistive technology, no matter where they live. That's what I feel, if they afford or not, but we should help them. They should live like our normal lives. ATscale is playing a pivotal role in driving the global energy for assistive technology. Their focus on scaling up assistive technology for those who need it the most is a critical step towards ensuring that everyone, regardless of their abilities, can participate fully in society. Devex, with its role in facilitating meaningful discussions and showcasing innovative solutions in the field of assistive technology, is the testament to its commitment to creating a more inclusive world. I'm glad that together, ATscale and Devex have created a platform that not only highlights the challenges faced in the realm of assistive technology, but also shines a light on the opportunities and potential solutions that can lead to transformative changes. I look forward to the fruitful discussions and collaboration that will stem from this event. As we move forward, it is crucial to understand that assistive technology is more than just devices and software. When we empower individuals with assistive technology, we are strengthening communities, boosting economies, and promoting a more inclusive society. Each step we take in making assistive technology more accessible is a step closer to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. I urge each one of you here today to consider the role you can play in this vital endeavor. Let us work together to ensure that the power of technology reaches all corners of the world and touches all lives. Our commitment towards making assistive technology universally accessible is a commitment to a future where each person, regardless of their abilities, is empowered to contribute to our collective aspiration and achievement. Thank you so much. Thank you. I really feel so glad that we are sitting and wanted to bring a change, inshallah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, First Lady. It was so important to elevate these issues.
Yes.
And at the level of a national leader like yourself, we greatly appreciate you being here.
That you are really working a good cause, and we are there to help you.
I'll just ask our panelists to join us on stage. Please join us. Come and take a seat. So there is so much we can get into with this expert panel who knows these issues very well. I think our initial conversation, what we just heard from the First Lady, raised a number of issues I want to get into a little bit more deeply. And I thought I'd start with Louise James. Louise is the Managing Director of Accenture Development Partners, and you've worked a lot on this issue. You've sat on a board related to disability inclusion. Accenture has issued a couple of big reports on the topic. You know the space, and you know the broader development space. And so one of the things I immediately think about is, well, it would be expensive, as Leo and Pascal said, to provide these technologies to everyone around the world. I think the figure is some $700 billion over 5 decades or something. But on the other hand, we know the return we would get as a world would be massive, right? If everyone had access to the laptops that the First Lady talked about, or basic technologies, wheelchairs and hearing aids and the like. So what do we actually do about this? It seems like there is both a market opportunity and maybe a technology opportunity. How do you see where we go forward as a global health community on these topics?
Great, thanks Raj, and I'm just so delighted to be here today and share your enthusiasm for the importance of this topic. And for us it's very simple. I mean, when you sit in the private sector, we always ask the question, what is the business case? And if you can prove the business case, then everything else follows. And this is an area where the business case is actually so easy to prove. Because if we think about the return on investment, it's so clearly there. And research that Accenture's done, research that the Harvard Business Review has done, shows the increase in productivity gains. It shows that actually companies who really lead on disability inclusion, from the research we did, have 1.6 times more revenue, 2 times the profit that those that don't. And it enables you to tap into a workforce that otherwise you're excluding. I mean, it just makes absolutely no sense. So from our point of view as a company, we see very clearly the business case that's there. We have 13,000 people who self-identify as having a disability within Accenture. So if we don't support those 13,000 to be able to really be their best person and true self at work, then actually we're missing a trick. So for us, it comes down to very practical action, and I think we talk about how do you convert policy to action. So we have 40 accessibility centers around the world where you can come in and look at what types of AT is available for employees to use and access. We know it's not just about the technology. We've learned that you have to have the person at the center of that. So alongside the technology, alongside platforms we have for people to access technology, you also have the support, a case manager, it's all confidential, to really encourage employees to come forward and ask what support they need in the workplace. Secondly, we see how we can actually translate that into the work we do. And when you talk, the First Lady, about the personal stories, and you as well, Leopoldine, everyone comes to life, right? Because it's about the person, it's about the human. And we've seen, in our case, Liliane, who is a visual designer in Brazil, who works with us. She's a quadriplegic as a result of a medical accident. And she's designing solutions, working with Accenture's clients, but she herself was facing a problem using Adobe XD. Don't ask me the details of Adobe XD, but and so she got in touch with Adobe and said, well, I'm really struggling actually to use Adobe in the way that I need to do. So she worked with Adobe and she developed a plugin, which is actually called after her now, the Liliane Canvas Control. And Adobe have rolled that out globally for anyone who wants to use the plugin. And it means that for her and for others and her peers who have a disability, Leopoldine, you're nodding away, maybe you use it, it's actually been able to improve their workflow and improve the work we do. So, the business case is there, but we need to make it real for our employees within the workplace. And that's really something that we're focused on doing.
And please, Caroline. Yes, please jump in. We want you to.
I'm a troublemaker. The most important thing, I also think, is that you have a culture which is enabled from the top and the leadership. And, just to be really clear here, this is leadership sitting on a panel at this hour of the morning for a company when there's so many invitations. And that is also because we have a leader in Julie Sweet at the top of Accenture. And it's your willingness to put that time and create that culture. So you have all of this, it's amazing, but it's actually driven through the business because you're willing to give the time and put accountability at the center of it. And I just want to really acknowledge that. This isn't somebody just turning up. This is work that's been going on for a long time, led from the top. Sorry, just.
And I want to acknowledge you too, Caroline. Caroline Casey, who's the founder of the Valuable 500. We're going to hear more about you and your story in just a moment. But maybe I can pass the mic over to Jorge Olago, who is the Deputy Director for Partnerships at UNICEF. And obviously we're talking a lot about children here. And I think about the scale of UNICEF and the challenging places where you're working now. For a long time, it feels like in the humanitarian and the health space, children with disabilities were often kind of the last to be considered. How is that changing now, and how are you shifting the way that UNICEF works to focus more on really this core demographic within the humanitarian space?
Well, thanks, Raj, and thanks for the question, and thanks for the invitation today. Despite the picture they sent you about me, I'm still allowed to speak, so I'm very impressed. But I think Pascal has explained it very, very well. This was not in the agenda. It wasn't in the agenda in our countries. I'm from Spain, which is a country that is considered developed now. 1 generation ago, let alone 2, those kids would be kept inside the house, not allowed to interact, not allowed to learn, not allowed to flourish. So this is happening also in the development sector. This has been an issue that Pascal has been one of the champions for it for years, but we've been catching up on it, and thanks to people like Leo here, we're now accelerating. So basically, first we need to make the case, and there's the business case for the company, but there's the business case for the world. There is 10% of children in the world who are living with disabilities. There's 240 million people. And those children, they have a 30 to 50% percentage of not achieving or not having the right respect, 30% more likely to be stunted, 50% more chance to not be going to school at all. With those numbers, and the fact that 90% of those kids don't have access to any assistive technology, adaptive technology, then that means we're not making the SDGs. And I'm saying these are the SDG 10. If we don't invest on that, this is the flip side of the business case. The business case is for the world to happen. I mean, having 240 million people who are not able to live their life, and first of all, it's their right to do it. And when we look at a wheelchair, and my new friend Leo has allowed me to say that, but we may think it's a bit of a contraption, but for a kid that up to then had to crawl, for her to get on a wheelchair and to be able to go further and faster and safer and to have a standing with her peers and to go to school, that's a life-changing, and that's plugging that girl into a world of opportunity and then turning that from a burden, if I may use that horrible word, into an opportunity. Again, those children, and that's why we are now accelerating on this area. First is the right to do it, but we really need to make the case for this to be an investment. Pakistan is an example. Rwanda, we had another example. Yes, we are helping countries. Very proud to announce that Pakistan, we're just getting 11,000 hearing kids there. Why are we doing this? Because we can now get those kids, the right kids, at a much reduced price. We have reduced the price by 95%, for example. That means that the same money, expensive as they are still, and I know that from my family, it can go much further. So in UNICEF, we are now accelerating because we now have the opportunities. We know now how we need to do we know how to assess the needs and do the screenings, but we have the solutions as well. And again, this is the right thing to do. It's their right to have that support, but it's also a massive opportunity for their communities and for their countries. That's why we're accelerating.
And I think it changes the way that humanitarian response is done when now it becomes standard. It becomes part of our normal approach to go into a certain situation and say, what are the needs of the children in this place, not just have one kind of cookie-cutter approach to the response. And maybe Gilles Carbonnier wants to jump in on this topic. You're the vice president of the International Committee of the Red Cross. When you think about how the humanitarian response has adapted and shifted over the years, how does this conversation fit in? How do you see the work you're doing? Many of the most difficult conflicts where ICRC is present, and so you see children who are victims of that conflict. How does this conversation fit into the work you're doing every day?
Well, I think the conversation, Raj, is absolutely critical, and the campaign that is launched today by ATscale is absolutely heart and center to what needs to happen, because what we have seen, we have been for decades trying to assist people with disabilities, especially in places where you have armed conflicts, and with landmines and unexploded ordnances. Very often children are the first victims. And then you need access to different type of assistive technologies in different terrains, and you need this for lifetime. And assistive technology is a must, but it must be accompanied by all the other services that go with it. And that's where we need an integrated conversation with the health ministry, but also with the Ministry for Social Affairs and others. And I'm really glad to hear the leadership that you have in Pakistan, Madam First Lady, and also the campaign that you are launching with ATscale, which really brings the different actors together. So I will just give you a few examples of what I've been really struck in the field, moving around. And recently I was in Niamey, and in Niamey we have brought the different actors together with the Association of People with Disability, and we have different prototype of wheelchairs. You were saying, Leopoldine, it's your legs. Huh? And of course, in Niamey you have a lot of sand. It's very sandy in the dry season. It can be extremely muddy in the rainy season. And so we have different prototypes for people with different ages, and then they go for 2-3 weeks, come back and say, look, this prototype is not good enough. It's not good here for this terrain. So we try with them to adapt it and then to work with the local workshops to do something better and more adapted. At a central level, what we have tried to do is to have certified technology, which are high-tech but low cost. And we have, for instance, a new prosthetic foot, which is called Agilis, that provides much more mobility and rebounds with carbon fiber, like you have, for instance, in the Paralympics. And this is relatively low cost, and it allows especially children to regain quickly more dynamism, mobility, including if they want to regain access to some sports activities quickly. But it's a major game changer also in terms of social inclusion, in terms of rapid social inclusion, possibility to have, again, access to a job. And I think this is key. And the last point that I think is very important in the mobilization that I hear in the room is that, again and again, in the midst of armed conflicts, people with disabilities are forgotten. And it's so easy in a way to take a number of steps for preparedness to avert that. Because what we see is that you can think of Gaza today, but also what happens in Sudan at present, other places, where the capacity to evacuate and flee is very limited, and sometimes what we find is that people are stuck and with no help. Or if they are the chance to move and flee the fightings, then they don't have access anymore to retrofitting services, to the services they need for the AT to work and function. And this cannot go on. So there are measures and policies that we see work even in the midst of emergencies, and these type of measures needs to be taken also in preparedness so that, you know, the people with disability are not left behind even in very dire circumstances.
Yeah, thank you for those real world examples, and I think it shows when the mindset shifts, when we start to see, you know, we heard from Leo about children who are kept hidden sometimes, right, inside the house. When we start to see and know what we're looking for, it can change the entire way that huge institutions like ICRC work. And I think that is maybe a good introduction to our next speaker, and Carolyn, because you came here to Davos in 2019, and you've gone through your own personal story, which I'd love you to share a little bit more about, but you came here and said, you know, this is such an important issue, and I have the ability here in Davos to do something like what ATscale is doing right now, to gather some of the world's most influential leaders. And you created the Valuable 500, put together CEOs, very influential CEOs, to say, let's elevate the issue and do something about it. So tell us a little bit about your own personal story and what the Valuable 500 is doing.
Well, you should never give an Irish person a mic. Firstly, I'm just going to ask, whoever's wearing a pair of glasses, will you take them off for me? Just take off your glasses, and I just want to make a point. I'm sitting in this chair because I have a condition called ocular albinism. I'm registered blind. Now, I wear glasses, and that doesn't improve my vision. I'm registered blind with my glasses. But I'm Irish, and I'm privileged. I had access to an education. Because I had access to eye health that made the best of what I have. And I wouldn't be sitting in this chair if I didn't have that. And it's like Leo said, it's the greatest liberation of potential. This is a conversation about the potential of all of us as human beings. And I'm not saying that what I've done with my life is good, bad, or indifferent. I'm 52, I have loads of things or more I want to do. But when I think about what the Valuable 500 has achieved, I'm the president of the International Agency for the Prevention of Blindness. I hold lots of roles, and all of that would never have happened if I hadn't had the chance. It matters, First Lady, you turn up. It matters, all three of you, that you've come here at 7:30 in the morning. It matters that you're willing to say it. But the reason I've asked you to take your glasses off, those of you who have it, you would not be sitting in this room if you didn't have access to those glasses. It is that simple. And when we talk about today and how we can resolve this, we can talk about the business case, we can talk about potential, we can talk about all of the opportunities. But actually, this is resolvable. There is a solution to all of this. And it's a multi-sector approach. Yes, we need government. Yes, we need business. Yes, we need troublemakers and lived experience. And the reason I say that is the Valuable 500 was formed out of pure frustration that 1.3 billion people in the world who have a disability, with a mother and a father, is 54% of our global economy. But that's just now. But every one of us is going to have a disability. This is about future-proofing our planet, for our children, for ourselves. And the idea that disability still remained on the edges of Davos, on the edges of true, proper conversation. Yes, 11 times mentioned the Sustainable Development Goals. It wasn't even mentioned in the Millennium Development Goals, right? So I truly believe in the power of business, truly, because I know at least there was work really happening in policy and in the public sector, but this was the unlocking for us. And I truly believe that leaders make choices and those choices create culture. And what I wanted to do was to end the CEO silence on disability. And here, 5 years ago, with Accenture and Unilever and Procter & Gamble and Bloomberg Fujitsu, we called out for 500 of the world's biggest CEOs and their brands to be intentional and accountable. And we did it, and it's possible, and we broke the CEO silence. And these 500 companies now, representing 23 trillion in market cap and 22 million people, are now going to take system barriers and be accountable to them. So what I'm saying here in this ATscale moment is, we all don't have to be Leopold or Richard Branson, but if we each do our small thing and add it up, then we can change it. Then it can happen. We've talked a lot about statistics. There are 1 billion people in the world who are necessarily blind. 900 million because we can't get glasses. It's already a fight enough for the 1.3 billion people. Why do we have a world blind spot? Why does that happen? And that is simply because we aren't intentional. And today, I just want to say thank you for ATscale. ATscale is about bringing people together in partnerships in all the different ways. Thank you to every single person who turned up today. Thank you to every single organization, because if we join together in our small way and add it up and join the dots, this can and will change. This can and will change. Sorry, emotional, too much coffee.
Thank you, not sorry. Please, a round of applause for that.
Yeah.
Look, I think, Caroline, you brought two critical elements to this discussion today. I'm so thankful to have you here, and thank you for kind of wrapping up the panel in that way. Although we're going to continue in a moment with a question from the audience, if we can get one. But you did two things. You said, this is possible. This can be done. Yeah. And then you also talked about some real ways we can do it. And I must say, when I read the statistics, as someone who's newer to these issues, it can seem daunting. Yeah. But the reality is, when you have individual companies, individual humanitarian organizations, development organizations, each with scale. Everyone in this room represents even countries with real scale. When they come together, the opportunity here is real and is right before us. So thank you for making that so plain to everyone here. I want to see if we have one or two thoughts or questions from the audience to spur our panel. One or two? Let's see. There's one all the way in the back, and okay, we'll take both of those. Someone can, yeah, we'll bring a microphone. Just tell us your name and organization if you would.
Was it the back? Right to the back. Yeah, morning everyone. Thanks for super powerful interventions. Really briefly, my name is Tom Dennett. I'm the chief exec of a global children's-focused NGO called Street Child. We work in 20 conflict-affected and highly impoverished countries, primarily focused on education. So we're constantly focused on, reaching the most marginalized and stretching those pounds, dollars as far as possible, right? We're 15 years old. We hadn't thought, honestly, hard about the issues we're talking about today. It's about 5 or 6 years ago. We're a British organization, and the British government has been one of our major funders, and they elevated this issue, and really it became a kind of condition of terms of business that we started to look hard about inclusion of children with disabilities in our programs. I just want to share one thing from Sierra Leone, which is the country I know the best. I've been involved in that program since the beginning for 15 years. And in the early days, like I said, this issue was not on our radar at all. And now, when I work with the same staff, for 5 or 6 years, we've been proactively seeking to include children with disabilities in different ways. And very simple things. Almost all the teachers we're training are aware of, children have variable qualities of sight. And it's not possible for us to issue glasses within our budgets to every child, but it is possible for us to be aware of the children who can't see so well and bring them forward to the front of the classroom. And we've been integrating this perspective into our work now, for the last 5 or 6 years. Now we've just seen dramatic changes in outcomes for children, and it's now in the mentality of our staff. It wouldn't be there. And so I just want to kind of share that. And I guess what am I trying to say? Even where the budgets are tiny, I know we're talking about technology and I'm talking about changing in attitudes, so much can be done that actually brings real results. I've seen that in the course of my own work. So, and I'll wrap by saying that, at Street Child, we really commit to getting behind this agenda as much as possible, because we've seen how important it is for the most marginalized.
Thank you so much, Tom. And one more intervention from the audience there. Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Maximilian Martin. I work for a bank, Lombard Odier. First of all, pleasure to be here, and thank you for your inspiring interventions. That's really great to work us up in the morning. I think, the fundamental question I'm asking myself is, clearly this is very important. At the same time, you are competing for attention, you're competing for resources, and both are finite. So the question to the panel would be, what is the one thing? What we know about complex problems is that they tend to have inflection points, right? We need to hit the inflection point. What is the one thing that you think that a group such as this or the audience at Davos could or should do to really enable you to achieve a step change in terms of results? Thank you.
Yeah, both fantastic interventions on two sides of the spectrum in a way. One, Tom's point that even changing attitudes, even something as simple as putting children at the front of the classroom can make a difference. And obviously it's just a first step, right? We want those kids to have glasses, but it's important that even that shift. And then secondly, can we think, as a banker might, can we think, as Maximilian says, in the much larger market terms, right? What is the thing we can shift that will change the dynamic here? Does anybody want to jump in on this topic to start us? I think, Jorge? Yeah. Please.
Thank you for the questions and for the comments and for the interventions. I think we need to normalize this. I think we need to make it normal. Again, I come from a country where this was not normal. That was known but kind of politely hidden. This is, again, it's a right. It's a children's right. There are solutions, and solutions are becoming better and cheaper. And that's something that we need to look into. But what we need to do first is the screening, identify that and normalize it, fight, and that's something we do at UNICEF, fight all this bias, fight all these discriminations, which sometimes are not even visible, but they are there, and normalize it and bring those children to the front of the class or to the top of the school, so that they can learn better, but also they can help their colleagues learn, the students co-learn with them. That's absolutely normal, that we all gonna be there at some point. We have the solutions. What we need to do is screening early, because if we catch those kids early, then we know that they're going to live a fulfilled life. And that's the business case, the global business case, if I may, the SDG case, which is turn that into an opportunity. Those kids will be contributing to their economies and their families. And basically this. And we need to do one thing, which is going to be counterintuitive. We need to work on the demand side. We're talking supply. We're talking availability. We need to make the demand much bigger, because guess what? We'll turn that into an opportunity. We'll make it even cheaper to get those. But we need those kids to know there are solutions, those families to know there are solutions, those communities to know that there are solutions, that those kids are going to be contributors to their future. And we work on the demand side. We'll make the problem bigger, if I may, but then we'll find solutions, because it's the right thing to do, but it's also it's a great opportunity for the world. And we need to, I think, change the discussion towards that.
Yeah, please. That's a great point, Jorge.
That is exactly the point, but to a banker's perspective, this is absolutely about cost. The cost of exclusion to our economies is astronomical. So how can we resolve this? There is the market issue. There's actually looking at about getting the assistive technology to where it's needed, cheaply or affordably. And there are market holes on certain things like glasses, for example, the distribution model. That needs to be handled, and we'd love business brains to start looking at that. But the key point to this is, if we get assistive technology right at the young ages, then that is access to education, access to a workforce where people can contribute. This is actually about economics. And if we look at the distribution of getting the assistive technology at source to where we need it to go, then we can resolve it. But the other biggest issue is, I ask us in Davos, why are we making these big commitments about education for all when we know we can't achieve it if we're not getting this assistive technology? We have to join the dots between all the agendas. It's about joining the dots and ensuring when we look at making commitments around climate, making commitments around poverty, that we're considering accessibility in that conversation. So.
Thank you so much, Caroline. Maybe Louise, you want to jump in on this as well?
Well, I think when I think about inflection points, there's no doubt that we are at a key technology inflection point around AI. And I was at dinner last night with a nonprofit, and I said, if everyone could go donate for every time we mention AI or Gen AI this week, then all the civil society organizations here will be very well resourced. Exactly, we'll all take it. So I think there's great opportunity, right? And we look at Gen AI and we look at what's happening and the disruption it's causing. There's great opportunity, but there's also risk. So I think, how do you ensure that when you look at how Gen AI is using, you actually look at it from an accessibility point of view? So much potential there, which is a true inflection point, actually, but we have to be very intentional about it. And that would be the call to action that I would make.
Right, and you think about market dynamics. You were talking earlier about the local production of wheelchairs in some of the environments you work in. We heard from the First Lady about local production of bionic hands that can be exported to other places. There's also a big market opportunity here. Is there something we need to do to make that inflection point move, Zhao?
Yeah, is a quick question we are wondering, because you see, you said it concerns us all, and it's true. And throughout our life, we are all concerned. But then the situation is very different here in Switzerland, where I live, and of course in Afghanistan, where we have 7 rehabilitation centers. And in terms of finance, the question of Maximilian, how do we make it happen? We have an issue as a humanitarian organization because we have annual budget plans, and our donors decide every year whether they want to fund or not. And at the same time, we take commitments in our rehabilitation centers with our people with disabilities for lifetime, for generations. So we have tried to create different vehicles, foundations, liaise with development actors, liaise with the private sector. And I think one attempt that we did together with, among others, Lombard Bank, which thank you very much for the support, was the first humanitarian impact bond. So we front-loaded money by selling those bonds to investors, and these investors could lose, most of their investment, or they could even make a profit if 5 years later we had constructed 3 rehabilitation centers in Nigeria, the DRC, and Mali. And if we had the quality of services, if we had managed to bring also the services, as you were mentioning, Pascal, of all the different ministries that needs to be on board, and if it was running properly. So it was a way for us to be able to bring different stakeholders together. And the beauty of it is that it's changed the way we do business. It forced us to digitalize the way we go through the whole process, and it influenced all the other rehabilitation centers and support that we provide to other centers across the world, and it brought the quality of services up. So I think this type of partnership, very much SDG 17, as we heard before, are not only useful in terms of mustering the resources and the support we need, but they're also very useful in adapting, changing, innovating in the way we try to provide this to scale. So I think we need more of these attempts to bring the different sectors together. Yeah. And I think, as you say, we need really to work on demand, and from there to make it happen. There are solutions, but I think we need to bring it to scale, and the campaign that ATscale is launching, I think it will be extremely useful in this regard.
Well, we need to close, and as Caroline says, we need to connect the dots. So let me try to do that briefly, just to say, I think, oh, sorry, you wanted to say something briefly? Very quick, because I think we're getting late on time.
Thank you so much for an excellent discourse going on. Caroline mentioned a very important point, that the system barriers. I think one of the major issues the developing countries are facing, it is their weak procurement systems. The governments, they are not geared to have bulk procurement, and also to maintain the quality. So that is one thing, if we are not going to build the capacity of the government to have these kind of procurements, the countries would keep on banging on the donor support, So we really want to build the capacity, and that can lead to the local manufacturing, strengthening the local manufacturing also. So these two things, when the donors are providing provision of assistive technology to the countries, I think one of the important components is to keep that also, to build the capacity of that government when we talk about procurement of the assistive product. And that is very crucial for sustainability of assistive technology products provision. Thank you.
Thank you so much from our colleague from the WHO, and it's such an important point because ultimately we need to drive costs down, which means looking at local production and building the market for all of this. And as I say, connecting some of these dots together, I would just say this is the best of Davos, this kind of discussion, because what we're here to do is to say there is no one silver bullet answer, but this is a truly global challenge. And if all of us can elevate this issue and think about it from our own lens, from the perspective of the company you run, or the NGO you work in, or the government you represent, think of it from your own lens. Together, we can actually move this. We can move this needle. And I think this is the beginning. I hope you remember this moment, because I think when we come back to this annual meeting next year and the year after that, we will see this issue continue to develop. And we'll look at the statistics, and I think we'll start to see some of the reality in those statistics because of the leadership of so many of you, and especially ATscale. Thank you so much, Pascal, and our partners at ATscale for this session. And thanks to all of you for prioritizing this issue this morning. Thank you.